Hello and welcome to another episode of Reboot America. I'm Chinsek Roshan. I'm here with my good friend David Smith. How are you, David?
Doing well. You don't want me to recount the thump 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 here. I'm here now. Intro.
That would have been a good.
You don't want that as your intro, huh?
Too bad I did not have the recording going, but that was sounded like you were wrestling with somebody. The timing was comedic. You had all the sound, and then everything goes quiet. Okay, I'm here now.
That's why you want to record these impromptu and just unscripted and unrehearsed and all that.
Well, we are new at this, and we're trying different things. That's all you can do. But anyway.
Speaking of which, it sounds like you have a recording there. Is that the Newt Gingrich audio?
Yeah. Obviously, Wednesday night was the second GOP debate. I watched it, and for the most part, it was a waste of time because the moderators lost control. But I think at the very, very end, Ron DeSantis came across very strong, especially that final, what was that, voted off the island. By the way, that's just it's an insult to the entire process.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that DeSantis stood up and said, I'm not going to play. This is disrespectful. I think he showed himself to be the leader. He is the leader among the people that were on that stage.
On the island, the ones that are still on the island.
The ones who are still on the island. But anyway, I thought Ron DeSantis had a really strong finish. I don't know if you share that opinion.
Well, honestly, I only saw the last segment, then the appearances in the kiss and cry room or whatever the hell they call it, spin room afterward with Sean Hannity. Those were the only two parts of the entire thing that I saw. I was late finishing work, late getting home, and by the time I sat down, they were basically doing their closing remarks. Now, that said, I agree with you. I think that DeSantis' handling of the voted off the island thing was the best response that you could have hoped for. Here the media was basically trying to turn this into a complete farce. And he was saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're running for president. We're serious. We're not going to do that. I thought it was kind of telling, that said, that Chris Christie actually filled out his form. And despite the fact that it was naming Donald Trump, that he wrote Donald Trump's name on his card, he filled out the card.
The debate was very, very odd. Generally, the first question goes to the leader. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump is the leader, but he wasn't there. Among the people who were there, Ron DeSantis was the leader. That's why he was center stage. And yet he didn't get the first question, he didn't get the second question, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. He got the seventh question. It was a good 15 minutes before Ron DeSantis got a chance to speak. Now, that's strange to me. That's very strange to me.
That's a detriment to the members of the media, the moderators. For them to behave like that, for them to take that long, that's a really unprofessional way of handling themselves.
First question was to Tim Scott. Now, mind you, Tim Scott is what, in the low single digits?
If he's been at 5% ever, I'd be surprised. Now, he has obviously the natural detriment of having the former governor of his state and the former secretary, or whatever she was, UN ambassador, secretary, whatever it was, from the same state.
UN ambassador, that's what she was, UN ambassador. Actually, she was the UN ambassador of Israel, because every time I watched her, she was talking about something related to Israel.
Yeah, our greatest ally and all that, right?
Let's not go down. Let's not go down that dangerous road. But
I mean, she takes automatically would-be support away from Tim Scott. This is not me advocating for him. It's just a reality. As a senator from the state of South Carolina, to have the former governor essentially running against you, that's a unfortunate situation for him to have to deal with right from the start. But that said, he's never been at consistently 5%, much less above.
Yeah.
And to ask the first question, to ask the second question would be inappropriate. Start off with the guy in the middle, and then you start, giving some fodder to the ankle biter, so to speak. The race, I maintain, is between Donald Trump and unless you look at outliers, Ron DeSantis has been the number 2 in the polls throughout, every time.
People violated rules as far as their time, talked over each other. They didn't enforce the rule of whenever someone mentions your name, you get a chance to respond. It was just complete chaos. And then, of course, we had to have the Latina who kept talking about immigration with this attitude that somehow the entire world is entitled to come into the United
Who
States.
was
Now,
that person? I don't even know that person's
I don't
name.
know. I kept seeing the name Ana Navarro, but I don't think that's her name. But anyway, I can look
Is
it up.
she even a Republican?
No, she was there because this was done in partnership with Univision.
Univision. Big deal.
She kept going on about illegal immigration. I'm an immigrant. It never crossed my mind that I was entitled to come to the United States. I asked permission to come to the United States and they let me in. People who are not even here legally. Where do you get this attitude that you're entitled to be here, to come here? I don't know, but anyway, let's not go
They
down.
went to her at the end and she said something and she's speaking in Spanish. I'm like, what the hell are you speaking in Spanish for? Again, just another illustration of mockery, joke, just a complete joke. This was not the way the Republican Party needs to set this up to make itself look good. This was not impressive. It was not impressive for the candidates. It was not impressive for the party. It's not impressive for the eventual nominee. That this is not impressive for the future bench. If any of these people are candidates again in 2024, 28 rather, I was not impressed.
Her name is Ilia
So
Calderon.
what? We're not even good enough to get Ana Navarro, who at least people have heard her name.
Oh gosh, I don't want that woman there. She's doing enough damage on the
You
View.
got the moderator at the debate the other night, who at one point Ron DeSantis said something about, I'm the only person on stage who has served. And the moderator said something about Nikki Haley's husband, who is like a colonel in the South Carolina National Guard, and I think is deployed right now. I believe that's correct. I wouldn't swear to that. Not the candidate's spouse.
Yes, I saw that. And I thought the same.
Which that's a really interesting reversal from the debates of 2016 and 2020, where the argument always was, well, you got moderators who are anti-Trump. Here are moderators who are obviously providing covering fire for everybody except Ron DeSantis. This is a big old Ron DeSantis dog pile.
I expect Ron DeSantis to get a bump from this debate. And if he doesn't, then either the polls are way, way off, or I have completely misread the GOP electorate. So we'll see. Anyway, let's get to the Newt clip. Here it is.
In my mind, Clifton and I watched both debates. And our conclusion after last night was basically that this is over. Nobody's going to break out. Nobody is going to be particularly aggressive. I mean, look, I think DeSantis has a great story in Florida. I think Tim Scott's a wonderful U.S. Senator. I think Nikki Haley has a lot of good things to say. But you back out of all that and you look at it, none of them are going to overtake Trump. Trump's going to be the nominee. And I actually think that this should be the last debate. Just let's go on, accept the fact that Trump will be the nominee, and figure out how do we beat Biden and win the Senate and increase our majority in the House.
It seems to me that after last night's performance by Ron DeSantis, people like Newt would actually encourage Donald Trump to join the debate. Instead, it seems like the pressure is on DeSantis and everybody, get out, get out, get out, get out. I just don't understand this reaction from Newt. What's your impression?
I read the article that you sent over to me, the link that Scott Walker.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that later, but anyway, go ahead.
I just want to read a little bit from it. At a time when voters too often feel let down by politicians in both parties, Mr. Trump has the rare reputation for doing what he said he would do in office, which almost made me gag, but he keeps going. Getting voters to change their minds about him at this point is difficult for any candidate. Having said that, and then he goes on and he sings the praises of Ron DeSantis as governor of Florida, former UN ambassador Nikki Haley, blah, 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 former Vice President Mike Pence, da-da-da-da, and if you like the young guy, Viva Ramaswamy, Tim Scott's been such a great senator, da-da-da. And it's just like, what are you guys smoking? And I can't imagine those two.
You are all great, but get out. Get out.
Scott Walker dropped out and has things to say about his own campaign of just, man, we were just incompetent. It's like, yeah, you were. But now he's talking about Donald Trump in just effusive praise of, oh, he did all the things that he said he was going to do. And it's like, are you completely ignoring? I mean, aside from the three big rally chants that everybody jumped on board with, lock her up, drain the swamp, and in Rick Perry's words, whatever the third one was, build the wall, the big one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. This is what, and honestly, I think the Scott Walker knows better. I think the Newt Gingrich knows better. Don't tell me that these two don't understand that having Donald Trump as the nominee will be a catastrophe for the GOP. So why are they doing this? I mean, it's 4 months. I mean, we have 4 months to go or 3 months to go. Not one vote has been cast. Why are people like Newt Gingrich and Scott Walker essentially saying, look, it's over. Let's just give it to Donald Trump, when they know damn well that giving the nomination to Donald Trump means we're going to just go over Niagara Falls in a canoe?
Oh no, I mean it's not even canoe or a barrel and just kind of falling meekly over the edge. I mean, it's let's turn the speedboat around, cut the anchor off, and by God, how fast can we go over the edge? Let's make it spectacular. Let's see if we can clear all of those rocks at the bottom, and let's see how far out we can go, and just with our Richard Nixon double peace sign raised in the air as we fall. Splash, crash.
These are people who ran for office, won office, they've been in politics forever. They know better. They know better. So why are they doing this?
What it really boils down to, they've learned the lesson of everybody who, like, for example, look at, as an illustration to answer the question, look at Glenn Beck in 2016. He was relatively big in the conservative sphere before Trump. And then he took an anti-Trump perspective, and his supporters just vanished. I mean, his company practically went bankrupt because people started talking down about him who were previously pretty big on him. I think that it's kind of that lesson learned of, you know what, Donald Trump is going to win this. Donald Trump is the nominee. If we go against him and if we say the obvious, we're not going to have an audience. Everybody's going to abandon us. They're going to go with the Sean Hannity's and the Jack Posobiec's, and it's kind of like us. We're struggling to get an audience. We don't have an audience. We are putting out some really good questions, issues, conversation, topics, etc. Crickets, because we're not on the Trump train.
You know, the only thing I can figure is maybe they really don't want Ron DeSantis. Maybe Ron DeSantis is a little bit of a threat. And they rather go down with Donald Trump and maintain the system than to have someone who has already made a lot of noise and presented a lot of plans for fundamentally changing Washington. And unlike Trump, they know that if Ron DeSantis gets that power, he will use it. He will get it done.
We both agree that Donald Trump as the nominee is going to lose in November. And I mean, the House is gone at that point. The Senate is gone. Dobbs will fall very shortly thereafter. Roe will essentially be, if not codified, it will be more or less back in place. That's the entire then Trump legacy gone, completely gone. That's gone. And at that point, and you're going to see all of their leftist wet dreams. When they control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they're going to shove everything through. Pack the Supreme Court so you've got far leftists for the next generation. I mean,
and Newt and Scott Walker have to know this, what you just said, your analysis. They have to know this.
I sure hope so. I sure hope so.
Yeah, let me get back to this article by Scott Walker. The first sentence, the guy in Michigan was more interesting than the gang in California. Were you aware that Donald Trump was delivering a speech in Michigan to compete with the debate?
I haven't heard anything about it.
I heard about it afterwards, but I had no idea. Now, He tried to do a competing event.
Yeah, take media coverage away from all these other people.
And from everything that I've seen, the debate generated a lot more coverage than that event, whatever it was, whatever he was trying to do. He didn't compete. So the very first thing that Scott writes is absolutely not true, because the gang in California received a lot more viewership and a lot more coverage than Donald Trump's speech. By the way, I haven't seen any clips of that speech, whatever he did in Michigan. Have you?
That's what I'm saying. I haven't seen anything.
I guess I expect more from the leadership of the Republican Party, the so called elder statesmen, former governors. I would expect a little bit more seriousness. I would expect them to stand up and say, Donald Trump is not doing a service to his supporters by not showing up at the debate. I certainly did not expect to see Newt Gingrich and Scott Walker essentially saying, this race, it's over. I just didn't expect that. I guess I'm more surprised by them than you are.
Here you go. Here's why you're not seeing any coverage about the Trump appearance. This is the New Republic website or whatever it is. Everything about Trump's, this is the headline, everything about Trump's Michigan speech was a stunt, including the workers. Oh, Donald Trump made a big show of appealing to union auto workers at a campaign event in Michigan, but turns out that none may have even attended. Trump opted to give a speech Wednesday night at Drake Enterprises, a non-union factory, instead of participating in the Republican debate. Drake management had invited him to appear, and the UAW union, which is currently on strike, does not represent the Drake workforce. About 400 to 500 people attended the speech, even though Drake only employs about 150. It's unclear how many workers, union workers, or even auto workers attended Trump's speech. One person held a sign that said union members for Trump, but told reporter Craig Mauger she wasn't in the union. Another person held a sign that said auto workers for Trump, but admitted he wasn't an auto worker. Trump is no stranger to filling a room with fake supporters. Former Trump aide Corey Lewandowski admitted in 2021 that they had paid actors to attend Trump's first campaign launch in 2015, which that's the first time I've heard of that. So this is why we're not seeing anything about that event, is because that was a completely fake event. This is getting worse. I mean, this isn't a weather event in Iowa canceling something that ends up being a nothing burger. This isn't showing up at the state fair because, I'm going to go and have a speech somewhere and saying, look at all these thousands of people. This isn't showing up at a football game, which...
You remember that episode that we did when he canceled because of the weather? And we thought, oh boy, this is a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, obviously, the polls have not borne out what we thought in that episode. But this is the thing that I find very, very strange. This man cannot get a crowd. I mean, we're talking Donald Trump, who got thousands and thousands of people show up for him in 2016 and even 2020. He cannot get a crowd. He is either going to events that, like you just talked about, the football game where there's already an audience there. There are people that are showing up independent of whether Donald Trump is there or not. He did that with the football game. He did that with the state fair. He did that in South Carolina. And now we have this event, which is supposedly workers, but they're not really workers. It's probably his fans that get a text message and say, hey, here's your chance to see your hero. So he's 60 points, he's 40, 50 points ahead. Why can't he generate a crowd? This is the thing. All of this is very strange. I have to say, this is one of the strangest campaign seasons I've ever seen.
Yeah, and they're just getting stranger, aren't they? I mean, we thought 2016 and 2020 were strange.
Let's say the Newt and Scott or anybody else, they're not particularly Ron DeSantis supporters. Or they just truly don't have a candidate that they prefer over Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think, even under that circumstance, they should act like responsible leaders and say, Donald Trump needs to go to the debates and needs to answer questions. Because if he doesn't answer questions now, he will after answer questions during the general.
Yeah.
Or they should at least talk about the fact that these 91 counts, these legal proceedings against Donald Trump will affect the vote of the independent voter. You don't necessarily have to jump on Ron DeSantis bandwagon or Haley or anybody else. You just have to be the adult in the room. I guess that's what I'm asking. Be the adult in the room and say to the voters, to the Republican voters, look, to go into a general election with a candidate that has these many legal issues is going to be devastating. It's going to be electoral suicide. Are you ready to do that? Now, at the end of the day, Republican voters may be so enamored with Donald Trump that they will vote for him no matter what. That's fine. But at least as a responsible adult, you fulfilled your duty. You told, I guess that's where my disappointment comes from. It comes from that. I feel like they have a responsibility to inform the voters and to tell the voters the political reality of Donald Trump as the nominee. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this subject. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, I think I've said more more than enough. That's pretty much it. I think that is way beneath the Republican Party, the activists, the voters, and these two men. These two men, of all people, should be far better. I'll tell you exactly what it's like. It's like that commentator the other night saying, you all have a piece of paper in front of you and a pen. Now write one name on it and tell us who you think should be voted off the stage. That's exactly what it is. And we need better from our Republican punditry and our alum and elected officials. And so we need better than that.
Especially people that love to call themselves leaders. Well, if you want to call yourself a leader, try leading. Try leading. Don't look at the polls and say, oh, Donald Trump is plus 50. I better get behind that. That's not leadership.
Show yourself a man. Show us what a man looks like. That was not what a man looks like.
It's always great talking to you.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.